everyone. Private equity funds deploy money with the hope of catching the next big wave. And there's enough evidence to prove that those who do emerge winners, irrespective of how negative the sentiments are, how wobbly the economy is, and how uncertain the near-term events are. So, when we get the head honchos of PE funds in real estate together, we are hoping to get a glimpse of what that next big thing in India's real estate will be. Where do they see the big opportunities? Are the opportunities shrinking and getting more long-term? Or is 5.5% growth and 50% of India younger than 30 good enough to keep the country flavor going? All these questions in today's debate, which will flesh out the big question, will 2014 offer interesting real estate investment opportunities? With me, Varun Batra, partner, Baring Private Equity Partners Private Limited. Varun, thank you very much for making the time. Nimesh Grover, partner, Real Estate Investments, IDFC Alternatives. Thanks very much, Mr. Nimesh Grover. There's also Sunil Rohakale, MD and CEO, ASK Group. Mr. Rohakale, pleasure to have you with us. Kuldeep Chawla, CEO and founder, ASK Strategies. Mr. Chawla, pleasure. Om Chaudhary, founder and CEO, Fire Capital Fund. Mr. Chaudhary, thanks very much for joining in. And Sameer Jasuja, founder and CEO of Prop Equity, on my side, hopefully, to thrash out and flesh out some investment opportunities. Okay, before I start, 2013 hasn't been bad at all. It hasn't been as good as the years before, but it hasn't been bad. Now, if you look at the roundup of year's biggest exits, investments and fundraising activities, what really happened? There was a splurge of PE investments. We all know that was the first phase, 2006 and 8. Of course, that's now looking at completing its investment cycle. So you did see 24 exits during 2013 compared to a total of 18 exits during 2012. The buyback route, acquisition of the PE firm's interest by the developer, accounted for 23 of the exits. Now, some of the big exits, what were they? Farallon Capital sold its stake in 7 joint ventures with Indiabulls Group for nearly 1,172 crores, making a profit of 42% on its 6-year-old investment. Landmark Holdings exited Wave High Tech City, a township in Ghaziabad, with 350 crore at an IRR of 20%. So PE exits, if you look at it, in real estate were up by 33% in 2013. Blackstone and HDFC Ventures, 367 million. Now, we are talking now about some of the largest investments. That's over 2,300 crore acquisition of Vrindavan Technology Village along with the Embassy Group from Singapore-based Assets Property Group, was one of the big moves in real estate. There was Canada Pension Plan Investment Board's commitment of $200 million. That's again about 1,250 crore rupees for an 80-20 joint venture with Shapoorji Pallonji Group. There's also Ascenda's Trust 600 crore acquisition of 2 million square feet of office space in Hyderabad from Phoenix Group. Stanchas joint venture with publicly listed Mahindra Life Spaces together to invest 1,000 crore across various residential projects. IIFL Real Estate Fund, Domestic Series 1 and other group funds invested $62 million or about 388 crore in Vada Group Slum Rehab Project in Chembur in Mumbai. There were several others and the list will go on as we continue to discuss. New funds were also raised. Kotak Realty Fund Offshore raised about a little more than 1,200 crores. From Abu Dhabi Investment Authorities, there's India REIT Fund Advisor, which also raised around 750 crores. HDFC Realty Fund received a commitment for its offshore fund of about 1,256 crore. JLL Domestic Fund raised about 110 crore. The figures don't look too big. Shapoorji Pallonji Realty Fund raised about 1,256 crore from a Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board, giving 80% stake in the venture. So, the year gone by has been summed up. Now 2014 is the big question. What are we going to do with it, and are there enough investment opportunities, I think, is the big question. So Varun Batra, first over to you, because Baring Private Equity has a good overall view of private equity investments in the country. Is 2014 going to be better or worse than 2013?
Thanks, Manisha. It's a tough economic environment, as you know. The macro is weak. On the growth side, it's less than 5% now. There's a current account deficit. There's a fiscal deficit. Inflation is still not not under control. We've just heard the RBI governor raise rates recently. And frankly, in this environment, I think we've got to take a call whether this is the bottom of the cycle or not. And if you're talking about real estate specifically, then we've got to first look, and maybe Samir can help us as to what's happening in the physical markets. The residential volumes are off. In the commercial markets, maybe we'll discuss it later, but I think there's some ray of hope. So if you take a very long cycle view, then you may just catch the bottom. And if you take a long-term view, this could be the right time to start thinking about investing. I'm not saying there's going to be a recovery this year, but maybe sometime next year is the best we can hope. There's also the big question mark on the election. Most of us, when we do our scenario analysis, maybe we're optimists at heart, but we hope for a pro-growth, strong, decisive government, and I don't think that can be baked into every scenario. So it's a very difficult one to call. Add to this tapering, fears about emerging market currencies. It's a situation where your outcomes could be quite dispersed.
All right, so I think the big question would be then, is this the bottom of the cycle? Nimesh Grover, you've raised a mezzanine, but it is a debt fund, so the risks are curtailed there and contained. What do you think? Is this the bottom? Do you think 2014, at least as a run-up to the election, will offer some good investment opportunities in real estate?
Yeah, sure. Just as an opening line, we're focusing currently on two product lines, which is buying ready income producing assets. Those are lease buildings. We bought one in Noida, we bought one in Pune. Additionally, we are also focusing on mezzanine or senior lending at high yields to developers for residential projects which are in the final stages of completion. That's the fund you were referring to. Our view is that 2014 will continue to offer attractive opportunities in both these spaces, and this is frankly led by by macroeconomic factors in terms of interest rate being high, capital not being so available. And if we analyze this further, and if we look at the two segments which we are significantly, the end users of our products are significantly dependent on, which is IT buildings and mid-price residential segment, I think those markets continue to be robust. IT industry continues to grow. The current round of depreciation on the currency has given us a new lease of life. The current interest rates continuing to be high increase the demand for a product which is an alternative to lending or bank financing. So we believe that 2014 will continue to provide interesting opportunities, but like every other investment, we obviously need to drill deeper into the location and just focus on the asset or the micro market analysis. But we are quite optimistic that we would get interesting investing opportunities in 2014.
Sunil Rohkale, what's your opinion? 2014 will be better than 2013 or a bit more nervous than 2013? A bit more nervous than 2013.
Well, in fact, my view is very positive, and positive for a long period of time, because we raised our first real estate fund in 2009, which is 350 crore. We deployed that in 7 investments in 2010, and we raised another 1,000 crore in 2011 and 12, which we deployed 50% of that. And recently we raised another $50 million, which is the first close of first offshore fund. So last 15 quarters we have done 13 investments, and 3 more investments are going to get in the public domain. The fact remains is that if you are a systematic and long-term investor in residential real estate in Indian market, there is no question of you getting deterred by any of the economic conditions or any of the weakening currencies or any of those political turmoils. My guess is that the India story for mid-income residential housing is still intact in the top 5 centers. I mean, Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, Chennai and Delhi NCR still look the same attractive. I feel the basic risk-adjusted returns are very much there. What have changed is that over 13, what we expect in 14 is the valuations of the raw material and the stage in which your project is. Probably you are probably closer to the approvals than taking an open risk of the approval process, which probably a biggest learning in 12 and 13. So my guess is that at this point of time, the funds, it's a great opportunity to have projects which probably are nearing approvals in place, simply because the developer today is finding a scarcity of capital. Banks are cautious. There is an ample amount of mezzanine and NBFC funds are available, but then one developer has to service those. So I think the sweet spot for the real estate private equity funds is the equity position of the private equity in real estate, and not really a debt looking like funds, which probably the developers are finding very difficult in absence of the cash flows. We all know that sales have slowed down, but I think that's an opportunity for the private equity fund, because we are not taking a view of 1 year or 2 years, but we are taking a view of 4 to 5 years. And mid-income, mid-size projects, typically a project worth 200, 250 crore investment projects probably have seen a good opportunity. We could see
the exits, so we get the point. You're saying that there are still lots of opportunities in the residential space if you have a long-term perspective, but things are different, aren't they, Om Chaudhary? If you just had to sum up the way PE investments and equity investments are coming, Sunil Rohakale actually mentioned one of those facts and says, look, we have to enter nearing the last minute of project completion because the risks of delays are so much, corporate governance within real estate companies is so much. So the nature of the monies which came in 2006 and 7 to what came in 2013 and will probably come in with the conditions of 2014 will be hugely different?
You know, they would be different. I agree with Sunil that there are opportunities in the last mile, as they say, projects which are nearing completion. Obviously that a lot of risks are taken out, and therefore learning from the experience, the exuberance of the 2007 through 2010-12 period, there is logic to, taking that view. But that said, the fundamentals, the way we look at it, continue to be robust. And for a private equity player, it's not just a 3 or 4, it's
the fundamentals continue to be robust.
If I get into the micro, I'm just coming in from a sales review, and you'd be surprised, in one of our investments in the month of January we've sold more units than over the last 3 or 4 years. So it's not all gloom. If you have if you're focusing on the real demand, if you're looking at products which are in the right price band, there are takers for that, because you're looking at urbanization happening at this pace. You're talking about 40 million homes. You can't say that this year is not. Yes, there'll be years with stronger momentum, and then there will be years where the momentum will not be as strong. But if you take a longer, the opportunity is still there.
I'm just wondering though, then why aren't the developers getting the monies? I mean, everyone in the PE industry seems to be so positive. Varun Batra is the only one who's sounding some kind of caution and saying, look, all right. But Kuldeep Chawla first. Sure. You're the house guest.
Sure. So the question is, why aren't developers getting money?
Yeah.
The answer is very simple, actually. There's less money going around.
Yeah.
And the reason there's less money going around
there are a lot of PE funds which have actually died down because they didn't make money in India.
Exactly.
Despite all the pluses and the big long-term growth story.
So let's break this down, into geography, and say that, the thing to look for is really what has happened to the fundraising cycle, right? The fundraising cycle has doubled in terms of time frame, has shrunk in terms of volume. International money, which was the bulk of the money that was coming in to real estate. That's why people talk of 2007. Because in 2005, August, when the government opened the FDI policy, from that time onwards till 2008, a lot of money came in, right? So the short point is that head of capital, is no longer there. Domestic market was smaller. Sunil is one of the few people who raised money, but that's $200 million in relation to $1 billion kind of fund of $500 million that came in with multiple funds. So that's one big reason. The second thing is that because fundraising cycles are longer, and funds don't want to be out of money, and they've learned their lessons from the irrational exuberance, therefore they are more cautious with making commitments.
All right.
That's the second reason why money is dried down. The third reason why they don't have money is because of what's happening on the macro. So developers had hoped that they would need less money from external sources, namely private equity funds or banks, because sales would be robust, you know, but that hasn't happened. And then finally, their construction costs have gone up dramatically, you know, post 2010, thanks to the inflation, you know, on steel, cement, you know, and all the raw material that goes into their inputs. So that's the last reason why they've had less capital.
All right, so capital choking up, a lot of PE head honchos here saying that, look, the space, at least the residential mid segment, is something that I'm hearing over and over again, along with, I think there's only one fund, but that's a debt one, which is talking about rental yields on some commercial and office IT space. Samir, do you think that 2014 is going to be different, or do you think that it's as nervous, or things are equally good or bad as 2013?
Well, first of all, you know, I'd like to just say a few things on through key data points. You know, I think first of all, we are going through a very bad cycle right now. If you were to compare this to 2010, our new launches have kind of halved. I'm talking about the top 10, 15 cities. Inventory overhang with new launches becoming half have doubled.
Right.
Right. The
so
absorption
the
rates
have fallen to 1/4.
Yeah,
literally. If you're talking about new launches halving,
absorption rates,
inventory overhang, you know, doubling, you're selling 1/4 of what you were selling.
We talk about the real estate
earlier.
market growing, we are contracting actually. The absorption levels have gone down to dismally low numbers, and they are under 50% of 2010. Lastly, we have outpriced ourselves. The pricing has gone up by 100% in the tier 1 cities in the last 3-4 years, right? So what has really happened? I think because of the outpricing, the affordability is just kind of, in this economy, bad economy, is just not there. And that is the biggest problem. And the overriding problem about that for PE funds and developers is greed, and more greed. Having said that, let's just talk about it for 2 minutes. The PE fund wants to make 25% IRR post-tax. I don't blame him. There's a huge forex risk, right? How does a developer give you 25% post-tax IRR? You know, it's not possible. The developer wants to make 3x on his investment. So what are we left with? Outpricing ourselves. And by outpricing ourselves, what has happened to absorption? There is no demand. Now, when you look at genuine price drops, we've been talking about a case in point in Navi Mumbai, in Thane, for example. There was a line of people ready to buy if your price is right. But the price is just so unaffordable today. On top of it, there is one last thing that I'd like to say. And this is what I was discussing with Om outside. The completed stock, because we had unprecedented sales in 2010, the completed stock is going to come into the market, and that kind of completed stock has never been seen before. And that's going to give such a huge competition to the new launches that it's not going to be funny.
Hold your thought, gentlemen. I think Sameer's raised a really important point, saying that there is so much supply going to come in the next couple of years that, well, you're going to be spoiled for choices. As a buyer, will prices come down further, and will that mean that PE investors won't have enough opportunities, or will they actually find more opportunities, is a question we'll continue to raise after this very short break. Welcome back to this extremely exciting and interesting discussion on where are the investment opportunities in real estate in 2014 for the private equity investors. We believe that they are the ones who spot out the next big thing. They are the people who are able to spot out the best investment opportunities. So let's get the question rolling, and of course some answers. Varun Batra, Sameer raised an extremely interesting point just before the break. He says we've outpriced real estate in this country, and that's the reason why it's going to get tougher to spot out opportunities, whether you're a retail investor or you're an institutional PE investor. Is that correct?
Yes, to a great extent, yes. But just to take you back to a point that Sameer made, and if this show is about investments, then you know, if you had actually invested in the physical asset, if you're talking to retail investors, then you have doubled or more than doubled your money in 4 or 5 years. But how come that's not reflected in the developers, and especially the listed ones, since that's public information? How come it hasn't reflected in their numbers and in appreciation of market cap? If you took all the listed developers and invested in any of their IPOs or FPOs at any point in time, you would be underwater. But just to get away from the gloom and to look forward, I think a lot of people on this show have mentioned that you've got to look at markets, micro markets, segments, and products, and both the residential and commercial are linked. And if you look at a market in a virtuous cycle or in an ideal state, pick something like a Bangalore where you've got IT demand, which leads to IT growth because of the US and Europe recovering, which leads to demand for commercial, which affects about 80% of commercial demand in Bangalore, which creates jobs and which leads to purchasing power for individuals to buy homes. And the sweet spot in Bangalore, being about 50 lakhs to 1.2 crores, is something that you're seeing even through this downturn. Bangalore is still held up in terms of numbers of units sold. So you've got to look for those pockets, you've got to look for sustainable themes in steady markets. It's not out of the range of affordability. Samir was referring to inventory numbers, unsold inventory numbers. Okay, it may be 22, 24 months in Bangalore, but it's not 50 months like it is in Bombay or equally high amounts in other markets. So I think you've got to look for your markets. I mean, I'd go probably deeper. You've got to look for your micro markets, and you've got to decide whether you're a retail investor or you're an institutional investor, whether you're a rupee investor or a dollar investor, and then decide on your strategy.
All right, Nimesh Grover, you've already mentioned some of the themes that you will be investing with. I mean, basically, it's looking at residential mid-segment is what you spoke about. You also spoke about rental yielding commercial or IT space. In city-wise, are there sweet spots if you were to look across India and some of the key cities? Do you feel that some of them may do better than the rest?
Oh yeah, for sure. So let's just break this into two. So I'll start with office because residential is getting covered fairly well, and I agree with Varun totally on the residential, and I'll come to that later. I think on the office spot you are seeing tremendous opportunities because you see rents have bottomed out in virtually all micro markets except the one we are sitting in your studio, Bombay. But if you look at rents in markets like Bangalore, if you look at rents in markets like Chennai, Hyderabad, Pune, even Noida now, rents have kind of moved up from their bottom, and the appreciation of commercial property for institutional buyers or large floor plates is typically linked to either the existing rent or the expected rent or rent that somebody may have got at a floor above. So if I take that as a barometer, which is probably what is done globally, I think the office market is clearly bottomed out, and their biggest consumer, the IT sector, continues to grow, led by the rupee depreciation also, which is a factor which is carrying a lot of others. It's just a question of whether you're an exporter or an importer. If one looks at the residential side, like I said, there are certain select micro markets. You've got to plan, who's the end user of that segment. Is it an IT office professional? Is it an investment banker like all of us? Is it a services provider like a law firm, which depends largely on investment bankers, etc. So once you get the end use segment right, then you can back the right sweet spot, which to our mind today is the mid-market housing. Because if there are 100 employees working in a firm, there are about 20 of them on an average in the initial stages who go and buy a house. These are young guys who are in the age of 25 to 35. This is probably their first house, so either they buy a 1 BHK or a 2 BHK. That's really the segment we are focusing on the residential side. Samir implied that a lot of us are greedy, whether it's a developer or a private equity fund or whatever. The thing which people miss out really is that the most expensive raw material in a majority of the markets is land. And if you look at the inelasticity in the land prices, it is amazing. So while residential prices have corrected or are on the verge of correction, we haven't seen anything happen in the land prices because it's a Me Too market. if my uncle has sold land which was earlier at X, even if it's after 10 years, I will not sell it at 0.9x. So I think that is the big change that needs to happen, or that's the big correction that needs to happen before the developers can actually see their affordability or their ability to give, sell apartments at a lower price really come in. So unless the land price,
you didn't name any cities. I mean, you explained to us, but clearly, I mean, for the viewers, they probably want something easier to digest. So if you were to look at the job creation, you were to look at, the end user demand, Bangalore has already been mentioned by Mr. Batra. Are there cities? I mean, would Pune feature in your list? Would Gurgaon feature in your list? Which would those markets be?
So if I look at residential, and I'll cover residential, if Pune would clearly figure in that market, if you look at micro markets like Hinjewadi, etc., where a large part of IT is moving. If you look at Kharadi, residential would be a good bet. If you look at markets in Chennai, the suburban markets of Chennai or the peripheral markets would be very, very interesting. Gurgaon would be a market we'd be kind of little scared to touch the high-end stuff. If I look at Hyderabad, one would wait for the political turmoil to get over. Bangalore, like Varun said, continues. On the office front, we continue to be bullish on Pune, we continue to be bullish on NCR, we continue to be bullish on Bangalore and Hyderabad, Bangalore and Chennai. We are a little worried about Hyderabad and Bombay.
Fair enough. That's a good summary. Sunil Rohakale, would you share your views in terms of the micro markets that you would be comfortable with in 2014, which would have, let's say, a lot of protection on the downside and the potential to give good returns?
I think we are quite focused for last 5 years, and we'll continue to have the same focus of self-liquidating asset class, which we believe is also a negative working capital cycle asset class, which is the residential real estate. Though I agree with Samir by and large, but I would not like to color the whole market by the same excess overhang. My guess is that maybe the market which is between 50 lakh rupees to a crore, which is a very good market, which is typically a middle management, middle class, upwardly mobile middle class of India, and this is a middle management of corporate India, which is educated, thriving, and accessible to the banking system to borrow for the mortgages. I think that is the segment which is much stable and much growing. Today, the issue is not about the demand slowing down. My guess is the issue is about the fear. There are still so many of such middle class people are looking at the house which is their first house or upgrade house. But I think the income stability, the uncertainty in the economic environment within that corporation or within the country's political system, I think people are looking at some kind of stability in terms of income and the stability of political outcome which is likely to happen. My guess is that the mid-income segment, which is probably led by white collar, which is led by services-led economy, which clearly means Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Chennai are clearly our preferred choices.
Wondering, Sunil Rohakale, that there must be a lot of distress on the developer side to bring in a PE investor at the last stage where all the risks have already been borne by him, and then it's just a sweet take at the end of the cycle for the PE investor. So clearly there's money which is required by the developers. Kuldeep Chawla, I mean, what's your sense? 2014, everybody's talking about residential, other than, of course, but that's a debt fund, so clearly it's very structured. If you were to look at equity and pure equity, and you were to say that if all of them are going to just chase that sweet spot of mid to, let's say, premium 50 lakh to 1 crore residential in these 3-4 cities where there's job creation going to happen, there are still enough projects going, isn't it?
Yes, I think it differs from city to city. Chennai would be 35 to 60, Bangalore would be 40 to 80, Delhi NCR, depending on which micro market you're talking. So
PE investors can still cherry pick?
I think they can. I think they can cherry pick because of 2 reasons. Number one, developers need far more capital, right? Banks are still not giving money. The RBI has a hawkish approach. Their sales are down, costs are up. They need to complete projects. Okay, so there's a huge demand for capital. On the other hand, the private equity funds know the numbers as well, right? They know that there's a shortage of capital. So they're just taking a demand supply kind of,
Okay, so my next question is, if you were to invest in 2014, how long term would that view have to be in terms of making the money? So, I mean, if you come in at the last stage, then you don't have to wait for very long. And you've seen HDFC Realty Fund exiting in 2.5 years and making phenomenal returns, isn't it?
Correct.
So how does one decide on, are we saying that now the 5-6 year, 10-year money is gone out of the window? Everyone's going to look at quicker returns because of the rupee volatility and the country risks?
Okay, so two things. One, it differs from fund to fund. And it does differ from domestic capital to international capital. Simply put, domestic and international, the currency risk aside, will come back to that. As far as the funds are concerned, from one fund to another, it also depends on which, where you are on your investing cycle. Typically, funds are between 6 to 9 years. Most foreign funds have a longer tenor. They are 7 to 9 years. We've seen over the last few years, as risk appetite of investors has come down, you've seen fund tenors of between 5 to 7 years.
Okay. But it's
even shorter.
Okay.
Now, when that happens, your investing cycle becomes shorter. So that's one driver. The second driver is what you mentioned, which is that the risk appetite generally is lower. So you want to do not only shorter tenor investments, you also want to see the return, the first return of your capital coming back sooner. What Sunil sort of alluded to was self-liquidating projects.
Absolutely.
Or what some of the other funds, domestic funds in particular, have done, where they want to see their money coming back sooner.
So let me ask Om that question. As a country, risk and the environment risks and the economy risks are going up. Are the PE investors trying to lessen their risks by by changing the way they're looking at investments, getting in later, building in a lot of conditions in that investment? It's pretty much what I hear, structured equity, which is very close to debt.
It is, and I think, and we've discussed this on your show earlier also, I think it was more the flavor of, say, 2012 and 13, and it's, to each his own. You could say that I'd like to reduce my risks, but then you're also not looking at, higher returns in that case. And like somebody else mentioned, if you impose, like, I need a 25% IRR come what may, it's not good for the project, because at the end of the day, it has to come out of sales, and it's predicated on some end user coming in and saying, okay, forget the mechanics and who's promised who X% return or Y% return. The end user is not bothered. What he's looking at is an affordable product. So, to answer your question, my view is a little different. We take, it has to be risk adjusted. You don't want to take unnecessary risk. But if you pick and make the right bets, you can, over a longer period of time. So I wouldn't say everyone is looking at
investment cycles have shortened?
No, not everybody is looking at that, because, in fact, now we're making even longer bets than what we were making earlier.
Fair enough.
Emboldened by the fact that, if we went into tier 2, which wasn't the flavor 5-6 years ago, we were focused more on, the real demand, which is what, we hear a lot of people talking about right now. So that is what one needs to be focused on. And going back to what you were talking about earlier in terms of and if I look at the retail investor watching the show and saying all this jargon is great, but what does this mean for me?
Yes.
So if I were a retail investor listening to your show, what I would like to say, and if they're trying to say, okay, let's see how these guys think and where they see opportunity, and then maybe in our own small way we can place those bets. I think what we are seeing happen is, even in metros, if you're looking at markets like Chennai, there are projects which are way outside Chennai, outskirts. Sirupperumbudur is a totally different.
We have right now OMR
city.
and GST not selling. So for that city,
if you look at Gurgaon, with transportation, creating the kind of opportunities, I would, just staying focused on NCR. What we are seeing happen is new centers are emerging. I agree with Samir that there is a lot of overhang, and those
So would you say go for the new centers? What's
No,
the
there are. So the point is, look at, that's where the opportunity is going to be. There are, like within Delhi, there are opportunities which earlier did not exist. You're talking about options in Bahadurgarh, which, you know, earlier, now with the metro connectivity, you're talking about Faridabad kind of coming up back with a bang, you know. For 25, 30 years, Gurgaon kind of stole the show, Noida, Greater Noida, but now suddenly you're seeing Faridabad. You're looking at Manesar, which is where Gurgaon, originally there was, you know, there was a lot of services and a lot of industry.
Okay, so outline
all of that is
areas
going
where
out.
Infrastructure is moving. That's where you need to go.
I think the future is going to be.
Okay,
That's where
quick
the real
word in
demand
Kuldeep
is.
because we have to take a break.
Sure. So I think he's alluding to a very interesting point. Institutional investors work very differently from retail investors. For the retail investor, you know, couple of mantras. Number one, you can't take the risks that institutional investors can. Please don't. Number two, therefore, as a consequence, look at, you know, places where not only is there no approval risk, but let's say possibly some work has started or you're sure it'll start. Okay? Look for projects which have what are called financial closure, where there is no financing risks.
How do they find that out? It's very difficult for a retail investor to get that
You
information.
ask your banker who's providing you the mortgage, because you know that's something that a banker does provide. And then ask your friends and family, ask for information. So yes, you can't get perfect information, but you can get that. Stick to what you want to do for the most part for end use, you know, or for investments that you can sustain. You know, don't become speculative. You know, for people who manage institutional money, they are paid to take the risk. Right?
Absolutely. It's not their
But
money.
it's
They're
not,
raising it.
it's not their money. They get paid to take the risk. Of course, they're experts, so they're supposed to take the risk. Their income and their profits depend on whether they make money
So
for investors.
speculation clearly out
Yeah, but
in
so
today's
stay out of that. So what Om is alluding to is saying, you know, yes, and so therefore, because why is Manesar going now? Because Manesar has created employment, right? The metro is getting to Faridabad, right? The metro is going to go beyond Ghaziabad, so on and so forth. Likewise in Mumbai, you know, things change because of the new monorail system, or, you know,
We're
as...
still waiting for the monorail.
Yeah.
All right. But that's infrastructure, of course, is a big bet and it's a long-term bet. But we pretty much got a good sense in terms of where the sweet spot, at least for PE investors, is. And not difficult to follow the trend as retail investors. If you just kept in mind what Kuldeep has spelled out, don't speculate. That's, I think, a dangerous thing to do in 2014. Meanwhile, we're going to take a very short break. But when we come back, the second screen questions, I think we've got the best minds to answer those two questions, which got a lot of responses. Should one invest in land in smaller cities was one question, but I think the most important one, which got about 55 people wanting to know that answer: will property prices across big cities fall before elections? So we're going to wrap out the show with the answer to these two questions. You're watching The Big Debate. Welcome back. In trying to find out where the PE investors are going to seek opportunities in 2014, one thing is clear, that it is the residential mid-space market which seems to excite and have a bottom. So that's the way to go, and in cities where there's a lot of job creation happening. So let's focus a little bit on that one or two big questions which came on our NDTV second screen. One was, will property prices across big cities fall before elections? Varun Batra, I think everybody sitting on the fence hoping that property prices will mellow. Do you think that they will? There is room for them to crack a little bit before elections? There's not too much time left.
See, I think you've got to look at, you don't always have to look at primary markets. If you look at markets where, Gurgaon for instance, where you know, you're getting discounts on secondary trades, then that's a place where if you feel comfortable that that 10-15% discount is a good entry point, then that's some place you can look for bargains. Similarly, we hear of there being a few cracks in Mumbai, but in Mumbai they never fall much. I think you've got to go back to see, do the developers actually have the room to cut prices? They've bought land at exorbitant rates. Construction costs and inflationary pressures are taking their cost of production or construction up, and the financing costs together with the delays I think has just made a lot of that inflexible. So if there are pockets where there is secondary availability of ready stock, then that may be something people could look at.
All right, so you're saying that it's a speculative element which would probably come in as supply in the secondary markets. I mean, we've discussed this quite often, isn't it, that there are distressed deals available right now, and probably they would get a bit more in the run up to elections or in the next few months. Primary market also, though, isn't it the case that new launches in some markets have started to happen at 10 to 15% discount to the existing or a project already launched?
Yeah, for the retail investor, he has the best opportunity today, and unfortunately the institutional investors can't get there, which is there's a big gap between primary prices and secondary prices of under construction projects, where there is very limited execution risk.
So prices have already cracked?
Absolutely. In the resale market, that is what my colleague was saying. Depends really. If the elections throughout hung parliament kind of a situation, yes, they could fall more.
Oh, they would.
The gap could increase much more.
So you're saying a hung parliament definitely spells disaster. Kuldeep, what do you think? I mean, so there are two scenarios. One is that we have a clear government, a stable government, and therefore you just have the next 3-4 months to probably hunt out an opportunity, because do you think prices will start then recovering quite quickly?
I think two things. One, let's focus on two aspects. One is completed projects. Okay, the other is under construction. The pressure on under construction is far greater than on completed projects. Okay, if you focus on under construction projects, I see three trends. Number one, primary offerings are at lower prices through various means. Second, payment plans are more stretched. So if somebody was asking you for 30% in 90 days, they're now saying, please take another 30 to 45 days more. So that means this thing. So prices
have mellowed.
Whether they will go down materially from here, you know, will depend on 2 or 3 factors. One, does the developer or seller need money? 2, what is the demand supply scenario? And 3, you know,
too many ifs and buts.
Okay,
Kuldeep,
so
what are you betting on? Do you think that in the secondary market and new launches, developers will be distressed enough to cut prices a little bit more?
I don't think there is too much scope for them to go down further, because the period is very short. So whatever had to happen has largely happened.
I think that's what we need to hear. Okay, then the next big question, which I quickly want an answer to: should one invest in land in smaller cities? Om, come in here, because you've been very closely focusing on smaller cities. Do you think that, you know, a lot of developers, national developers, are going and they're cutting out these plotted plots of land and selling them? Is that the way to go? Or buy probably just land yourself if you've got some ties and then hope to make the big money?
For the retail investor?
Yes.
I think for the retail investor, not taking undue risk is very important, and that's the reason why, as a retail investor, I would go for entitled land, you know, something that is where the developer has accumulated the land, got the approvals, and then is selling lots, and that is something that I think
would it be better than a flat in the same, let's say it's a large...
I would, at this stage that we are in, I would invest in land over finished property, because that is something, particularly in the smaller cities, because what has happened there is developers have gone in and they've done these large township projects where they're selling land, and that is because they have been stretched, did not have the capital or the bandwidth to actually carry out the construction.
So land
go in,
here is better.
Buy the land and do what the developer would have done.
Kuldeep is nodding very you know, strongly in acquiescence to what you've said. Kuldeep, would you agree, or do you think that even at the plots level, at the level of selling plots, developers taken off quite a bit on the from the table?
No, I think to the contrary. I think they are leaving a lot on the table for 2 reasons. One, the fact that they need to get that cash flow. Plots and floors, which are also similar, you know, give you very quick cash flow, and they need that, because private equity doesn't have money or wants to give them expensive money, banks don't have money, and they're not getting money from elsewhere. So they're definitely using any opportunity they can to do that. So they're leaving money on the table. The second is that, you know, the fact remains that there is scope for upside from infrastructure growth, from FSI enhancement, might come over 6, 7, 8 years, may not come in the short term. So that's the second reason.
So that's another upside.
And I think there is upside from that.
And I would buy, and I would also negotiate really hard with the developers.
Absolutely.
Because now's the time, the next 3 to 6 months is when you should go in, focus on these plots and negotiate really hard.
Okay, so we've got our answers to those two big questions. One, are prices likely to fall any further before elections? Well, our guests are saying that they've already fallen. If you look at the secondary market, new launches also in some markets are happening at a more modest price than earlier launches. You can negotiate harder. You can also get sweet deals like only paying 25% or 20% upfront, 30% and paying rest on completion of the project. All of this is an indication of prices having fallen. There's not enough time for prices to come down further. So if you've been sitting on the sidelines, maybe this is the best time to go out and buy. And on that big question, what do you buy in tier 2 cities? Clearly land wins, thumbs up. Varun Batra, thanks very much for joining in. Nimesh Grover, Sunil Rohakale, Kuldeep Chawla, Om Chaudhary and Sameer Jasuja. Gentlemen, thanks very much for making this discussion extremely interesting. I hope it didn't get very technical for our retail investors, but I at least had so many takeaways. I'm sure they did too. Thanks again to everybody, all our viewers, for watching this show and joining us today.